business will be conduct roll call. Commissioner Sana Gregory. We can't hear you on mute, Commissioner.
I am here.
Commissioner DeMont Davis. Commissioner DeMont Davis. Commissioner Gail Hambert.
Present.
Commissioner Felicia Franklin. Okay. Commissioner Davis logged on, but he did not respond.
It's that one right there, so it's.
He's not present, though. Oh, that's what that is?
Yes.
Okay, well, he's not logged on then. All right, okay. All right, so let's move forward. Are there any preliminary items for the next BOC meeting from the preliminary agenda that any of the board members like to discuss?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Hambert.
Hamburg, yes. Before we get into that, can we do something, maybe a moment of silence or whatever for Officer Joshua Baggett, that was in a serious car accident over the weekend, headed to work?
Yeah, so what she's talking about, we had an officer that was involved in a serious accident. He's in critical condition. He has to undergo several surgeries, but he is a fighter. So to that point, if y'all would, please stand with me and let's observe a moment of silence to pray for him and his family, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. All right, any discussion on any preliminary items?
No, but I want to say that I'm here. I had technical difficulty. This is Commissioner Franklin.
Okay, no problem. Commissioner Franklin is online. All right, well, let's go into our work session discussion items. First presentation is the library. Ms. Lett.
You can use the thing. That one. Click it one time. No. This one.
Is it okay if I take off my mask?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You're good.
All right. I just wanted to spend a little bit of time with you all today to tell you about library services during the pandemic. But first, I'd like to tell you that we have the honor of having the Librarian of the Year for 2021 as a part of our staff. Ms. Marquita Gooch Void has been voted by the Georgia Public Library Service as the Librarian of the Year, and she is our Assistant Director for Technology and Training. So we're very proud of her. Now, when the pandemic started, one of the first things that we did was to start curbside service. So we let people put books on hold, and they come to the library, and we safely and conveniently put them in their trunk, and they go on their merry way. So they're still been able to check out books during the pandemic. We quarantine our books, so we take our books, and for 4 days we put them in an isolated area so that they can be quarantined, so that they will be safe and will not have any of the coronavirus to transmit to other people. Learning Spaces is one of our premier programs. It's for our children from 0 to 5. They come in the past and have communed together and did experiential learning. So they have been able to work on crafts and those kinds of things. But because of the pandemic, they can't come in and gather anymore. So we now have drive-through pop-up. And with the drive-through pop-up learning spaces, they come in and they get a make and take craft kit. So they get all of the tools that they need to be able to do a craft. So all of our programs now are digital. So when we air the digital learning spaces, they take out their bag of stuff and they put their little craft together. So it's kind of like they're still there, but they're just not in the building with us. Storytime too has become digital for us. And quite a few of you have come in and read for our kids, and we have filmed you, so we thank you very much for that. We've had a lot of celebrities around the county to come in and read to the kids, so we've been real appreciative to all the folks that have come in to read. We use YouTube and Facebook Live for our programming. So we have some of the programs that are live and others we put on YouTube so people who weren't able to view the live viewings can now see them later on. So we've got a lot of extra hits for a lot of our programming. When homeschooling started, one of the first things we did was got out hotspots, and that really helped a lot of our kids be able to stay connected and get connected to their schoolwork. We also are pushing a product called Brain Fuse. It has homework help, so they have live tutors that the kids can either call into or they can go online and go to the tutors from 2 o'clock to 11 o'clock every day. And they will help them with math or science or any subject that they're having issues with. They will answer questions for the parents. And if the kids have writing assignments, they will take the papers, critique them, send them back, and they can make a better grade by making those corrections. During the pandemic, when it first started, we had been working on digital library cards because we knew some of our kids couldn't get to the library. So during the pandemic, we finished working on all of the digital cards for the library, and we have done 60,000 plus library cards for our students in the Clayton County school system. And as the new students come in, they send us their names, we create their digital cards. So now, whenever they need library resources, they can go online anytime, day or night, and they can get to all of our resources. We still have access to Pines, so if they need to borrow materials that are physical materials, they can get those through Pines, and we can get those delivered. We've been really pushing our digital books and magazines and our online databases. These are things that we have been pushing for years, so the pandemic has really helped us to be able to get a lot of usage out of this. So the legislators will be very pleased because they pay for these digital resources. We are now trying to hook up with One Clayton to find out who owns this site and who's keeping it updated, because if they're not keeping it updated, we want to help with that, because a lot of the people that call us need community resources, and we want to make sure that our list of those are up to date. We have free and legal music from Freegal, so when people are looking for entertainment, they can download music for free as long as they have a library card, 5 items a week, and they can keep them. We have found some unlikely stars in our staff from digital programming. People are very excited. Our staff is really excited about filming, about being in front of the camera, and some about editing. So everybody has kind of gotten involved in digital programming. So we've taken most of the programs that we used to have in person and created digital programs for those. So they are now on our website and on YouTube and Facebook. We have gotten some new equipment called a Padcaster that we can now do filming more easily, more convenient. We're taking our music production equipment and we're using that in our digital programming and teaching kids as well online how to use some of this equipment. We have a program called Art Therapy from the Riverdale Library. One of our library employees is really talented in art. So it's kind of like a sip and paint. So you come by the library, you pick up your kit, and then when you have, you're at home, you watch the digital program and she tells you what to do and how to paint your canvas. So that has been great therapy for a lot of folks. We've also been doing exercise from home. So if you have green beans in your cabinet, you can use those as your weights and you can now exercise. And the Atlanta Journal-Constitution picked up both of these programs and they publicized them for us. We wrote a grant, Grow with Google, and we have been teaching the Google resources to our entrepreneurs so they can now try to get their businesses back online. And we know that a lot of them used to use the library as their urban office. So now we've created something called Entrepreneur in a Bag. And in the bag that they get, it has a hotspot in it, it has a tablet, and it has a small printer. And now they can use those Google resources and see if they will really work for their business. We wrote a grant to the Georgia Public Library Service for Chromebooks. So now we will have 24 Chromebooks that we can check out to people who need to use equipment from the library. And we hope that we will get some more as they get more to give out. We have a database called Job Now. For the folks who are looking for jobs, and we know that there are a lot of folks in that position, they will help you with getting your resume together, with interviewing, and with assessing what jobs are good for you to apply for. We have a new program called Interplay. Interplay is a 2D, 3D, and virtual reality module that you can work on, and it will teach you skills to be an electrician, to be a plumber, or to do facilities management. And one of the judges, Judge Hayward from the court system, called and asked if this was something that she could send her probationary folks over so they can learn some skills and get a job. And we're hoping that at some point we may be able to team up with some folks who will give these folks an apprenticeship based on the things that they learn from these modules. And they're kind of self-paced modules. We are still working on financial literacy, I'm sorry. We're doing home ownership. We're now doing estate planning, since that has really become a big issue with all of the things that have happened as a result of COVID. We're working on budgeting, credit and money management. So we're still putting out programs to help our citizens to get their money in line and to know what opportunities are out there for them. We're working on things with the entrepreneurial mindset, because we know our entrepreneurs now have to think of their business in a different way. So we're looking at how we can help them with finding information about the PPP loans that are out there, how they can apply for those, and other things that happen with our entrepreneurs. So we're still connected with them to make sure they get what they need. With health literacy, we're working with the Clayton Health District. We're doing Medline Plus, which is a basic tool to help people to find basic health information that's on lay level. And we're also going to do some men's health classes with the Clayton Health District. For summer reading, this year the theme is Tales and Tales, and we are working on bringing in performers, magicians, ventriloquists, and other folks who will do digital programming for our kids. And maybe if by the end of the summer we get to the point where we can do some in-person things, we will do some social distance things as well. We're partnering with Parks and Rec. They have a program called Walk and Read. They're going to have some book pages on the trail, and as you walk the trail, you can go click on the QR code. It will read you those pages, and then we'll have the books in the library and digitally, so that the kids and the parents can now get those books. So we're real proud of that. And coming soon, we're still working on Northwest Library. We are working on getting comprised for online payments and some of the other behind the scenes kinds of things we need to do. We're trying to get our book sorter to communicate with the computers and get our biblioteca system up, but after that we should be ready to roll. So we're hoping by March the 1st we'll be ready to rock and roll. And last but not least, our library superheroes are working hard for the county, even in spite of COVID. Thank you.
All right. Well, obviously, y'all are doing a whole lot of work, and we appreciate the work that you're doing in our community. Obviously, the library is a wealth of resources, so please, citizens, tap into your local library. Are there any questions or statements from any board member in reference to library's presentation?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Gregory.
Ms. Lynn, you didn't have to get up, I'm sorry. You didn't have to get up in your Sigma Gamma Rho colors. But
my Delta Mass, don't
you mentioned that, you mentioned the one flavor. That was Dr. Carter, Dr. Shantara Von Carter. She was a part of that leadership Clayton class that put that one plate together.
Okay.
So you may want to speak with her about it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yes, and in fact, I'm glad you said that, Commissioner. Not only did they put it together during their term, but I believe we also added the link, if I can speak, to our website. So you should be able to find it there, but they'll be happy to work with you on it.
Yeah,
but thank you for what you all are doing. And I just want to say congratulations, because I was hoping, I was stepping back because I know our Librarian of the Year represents all the county. And I really believe that that definitely needs to be recognized on a larger level, because to have the Librarian of the Year for the state of Georgia to be out of Clayton County, that ain't something we just need to breeze by. We need to be proud of that. We need to definitely honor her for that. And I thank her for making us still Clayton proud. That's how we change our image so people can see who we are. The other thing I want to share with you, the best time ever was when last year, right before the pandemic, I was in a training session, and one of the directors of the state was teaching us about the library system and grants available, and right there at the top of that list was none other than Clayton County, which is the highest user of the Pines library system, once again in all of the state of Georgia. So we definitely need to shine a light on those things, and thank you for the great job that you all are doing. And I love reading those books, so keep it up.
All right, thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Yeah, one more quick thing.
Okay.
Of course, you know, well, in my job, we try to connect with the community more, especially during this time now. Who is our contact for, you know, maybe a virtual presentation so that we can let the parents and guardians and families know so much of this is available during this virtual environment? Who's our contact there?
Well, with the Youth Services Department, Rebecca James has been working with Craig at the school system, and he actually brings together all of the parent liaisons and all of the media specialists, and then we have been doing sessions for them privately. So we make sure that we are telling all of them all the resources that we have and giving them demonstrations and that kind of thing.
Okay, I don't know who Craig is.
I forgot his last name, but he is the person who's over all of the parent liaisons and the media specialists. So he's the one that pulls them together for us. But we've been doing individual sessions for a lot of different schools, and we've had like 30 and 40 teachers that are sitting in, and we've actually started asking them about their resources for the parents, because we know one of the frustrations with the parents is that they don't know what these kids are doing on these computers, so they can't help them because they don't know exactly how to get into the resources. So we're working with them so that we can now do some digital programming to help them help the parents.
Right. And if you don't mind, I'm going to send you an email because I know it's just a mix up in communication because Craig is definitely not over the parent liaisons, and I'd like to give you the contact of who's over federal programs.
Okay.
And then that way, what I'm trying to avoid is everybody, reaching out to you, or somebody else, and we'll have a contact because we all need it, but we just need that central person. So I'll send you an email.
Okay. I'll look for it. Thank you. Anything else? Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Lett.
You're welcome.
All right, next up, we're going to have a presentation on Marta Citizens Advisory Group. Speaking to some of the advisory group members as well as some members from Marta staff, I realized that this group didn't have structure to it, nor did it have really any directive in terms of what might be needed when it was originally comprised. So myself and Mr. Reed, who's going to do the presentation, had some discussion, and we look to provide a structure for this group. I think the board members have been a part of it since 2014 or something like that. So, and the board members haven't changed. So if this is going to be a true advisory group committee, then we need to really have input from more than just this core of citizens that was originally appointed. So with that being said, Mr. Reed. And while they're pulling that up, this is the only advisory group or board that did not have any formal structure to it.
Thank you, Jason. So this is a very brief overview of the resolution that's before you this coming Tuesday on the Marta Citizens Advisory Board. So the purpose is to provide input with reference to community transit needs, function as a sounding board for project teams, provide feedback on study direction and analysis, and provide an outside opinion on proposed funding, operation, and marketing. The composition is that it'll be 15 members. 2 will be appointed from each commissioner, so that'll be the 10. The 11th member will be the Clayton Chamber of Commerce president, CEO. They'll sit as an ex officio member, and the remaining 4 seats will be recommended by representatives of the AFL-CIO, Clayton State University, Georgia Power, and the Clayton Chamber of Commerce. Of course, they will only be recommendations because you all have to be the appointing members of any government-affiliated board. The Marta Citizens Advisory Board will designate, once they're all appointed, a chairperson and vice chairperson. They will oversee the advisory board agenda, facilitate discussion, present information to the Board of Commissioners on behalf of the board on at least a quarterly basis. If there's a vacancy for any reason, it shall be filled by the appointed commissioner for the unexpired term of the original appointment. And you all will have authority to remove any advisory board members at your pleasure, or at least make the motion to, and it has to be removed by a majority of vote. This is going to be for any reason. The Citizens Advisory Board shall meet at least once monthly at a place within Clayton County at a time designated by the board. Of course, it'll be subject to open meetings and shall act accordingly. The Human Resources Department will provide administrative support, and there will be no compensation for any member of the board. You all, if this is approved, will make your appointments to the Marta Citizens Advisory Board within 45 days of the passage of the resolution. The advisory board will develop bylaws consistent with the resolution that govern the conduct, meeting, and activities of the board, and that shall be completed within 60 days of the appointment of all of the members. Oops. And that's all I have. If you have any other questions for me?
Yeah, it's not a question, but just a statement that, again, this board would be appointing 10 members to each from each commissioner, and they would rotate. Well, we'll make those appointments. The term is every 2 years, and I was just reiterating those points. Are there any other questions from board members?
Yes, this is Hamburg, I have one. Okay,
Commissioner.
now is this different from the, citizens or, board that we have now, in place now?
The structure is different. What we have in place now is nothing. We just appointed some board members, and they really don't have any direction. Or I think Mr. Parker took it upon himself the times he came to give us a report at this meeting, at our meetings. But through this structure, they'll have either a chairperson or a vice chair or a designee that will come on a quarterly basis to give us update as to their discussions. And just, again, they're advisory board. That's it. They're advising us on projects, on funding, on interactions that they have with the Marta staff and any projects that's presented to them, and bring it back and discuss with us those projects and what we would like to see as well. So they're a sounding board.
Okay, so the one in place now is no longer in existence?
It is. It's the same board. It's the same people, except, again, they've been on this board for, I believe, 6 years. I think it's time to turn over that board and appoint some new members from the county to sit on this board to get some fresh perspective. And to get fresh perspective, I believe that, it's just my opinion, if the board wants to do additional years or whatever, that every 2 years that we should select new citizens. We're a county of almost 300,000 people, but only, 6 or 15 people from the community since 2014 has advised us on Marta-related issues. So I'm trying to get more citizens involved in this process.
This is effective when?
Well, it'll be effective whenever you all vote to approve it.
Now, I think we said we were going to, what was that date, 45 days
Well,
after
yeah, 45
approval?
days to appoint people after
Right.
that. But the resolution right now is just on your agenda for this upcoming meeting.
So, if it's passed on next Tuesday, then there's up to 45 days to appoint new members, and those old members who are currently sitting on that board will continue to sit on that board until new members are chosen.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, I have questions.
Commissioner Franklin.
First, I would like to say I'm glad to see this board get structured because I've honestly, I've attended several of those meetings for the past, now going on 5 years. And there are only actually about maybe 5 to 7 people that have been consistent, maybe even less than that, in attending. So the structure is extremely helpful. However, I have a question in regards to the accountability of it. I know there's going to be a chair of the board, and they are an advisory board, but I feel like we're going to need to have, I guess, a little bit more of not just a directive in the organization, but where is that information going to go? Is it going to just be a sounding board to us? Because we don't vote on Marta. We've already passed the amendment, so there is nothing for us to vote on right now. We have 2 positions on the board, which unfortunately does not put us in a position of necessarily advantageous situation to be able to pass or move or vote with such a large board. So at the end of the day, would this board have any type of a different outcome other than just bringing a better organizational structure for fresh ideas?
As I mentioned earlier, this board, the same thing that they have been doing now is gathering information, data, and bringing it back to either individual commissioners or to our board collectively at one of our board meetings to give us their perspective on issues, on funding, on programs that Marta's doing from the citizens' perspective. Of course, this is not a voting board. They are strictly an advisory board to the Board of Commissioners.
Okay, so I thank you for stating that. It doesn't answer the question though, because I'm still trying to figure out how is the outcome going to be different? Because I've participated in those meetings, and it seems like we're going over the same thing over and over again, and that's why a lot of citizens were disengaged in these meetings, because they began to feel like they were coming and discussing the same thing. And just to bring the point even home, recently with the ATL Transit Link Authority, we were honored to have Mr. Jeff Parker come and give us a presentation. But listening to Marta, they're going to actually be putting a lot of investments into transit-oriented development. And that's around their rail stations. I almost said Metro Rail, Lord. But around their rail stations. Well, as we know, Clayton doesn't have any rail. So Clayton's on that list. So if we don't have rail, where's that investment going? So I just think that we need to keep that in mind, but I'll accept your statement. The other question, though, Mr. Chairman, I have for whoever it is does the HR department provide support to our other boards? Because we really could use whatever support they're going to give to other boards.
Yeah, from my understanding, Ms. CO, they do provide some guidance and
Human resources.
come take the mic so we can hear you.
Hey, board. I know HR provides support to the Civil Service Board is the primary one, and there's one other board they provide service to. It escapes me right now, but I think it's two boards right now. HR provides some level of support to. Civil Service.
Okay, I'm sorry. And what is going to be that level of support?
Jason reminded me, the last board is the Board of Ethics. Right now, the Civil Service Board, they kind of serve as the proxy to taking care of administrative
No,
needs.
her question is, what's the level of support that HR will give to this board?
If that is not something, we put it in there, but what is ultimately what this board would like to have. So if you don't
So would they
want
serve a purpose?
they could just be a sounding board or a resource for the Citizens Advisory Board if they needed some assistance, but they don't have to play any role at all if the board.
Yeah, I agree with that. So as far as the HR assistance part, let's take that part out.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's going to be no employees. I just seems like it's going to be another task without any specific directives. So thank you so much for that. There was one other one though. I think that's about it right now. But I would like for us to keep in mind that we really need to have a conversation of how that information is going to end up, not just to us, but to be able to see it go into the thought process and voting process of the actual Marta board, because that's where it really needs to happen. I know what the other one was. previously there was an organization that actually used to come in and take care of a lot of that administrative work that's paid for by MARTA. So I'm glad to hear us say that we're not going to shoulder that burden of providing support outside of that group that is already being paid.
Any other questions, comments?
Yes,
Commissioner Hamburg?
I have one thing. Will this board and the two appointees we have to the model board, will they work together in any way?
Well, if that board wants the MARTA representatives to come to their meeting to talk through things, then yeah, that's always welcome for them to collaborate and work together. So that would be up to the board members of MARTA and the advisory board members. But I believe they sit on that board now, and I thought it was prudent that they remain separate because they got different functions. But yes, to your point, long story short, yes, ma'am. They will have that ability to do so.
Mr. Chair,
I'm assuming that we will have, they will have MARTA representation at each one of their meetings.
right.
To give them information so that they can make decisions or questions and inform them of us of what they've gotten from the MARTA representatives, I guess.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Commissioner
And
Frank.
I just wanted to piggyback on what Commissioner Hamburg said. It just seems like the best fit is to have those representatives, our two board members, participate in some way so there's some type of connectivity and flow of information for us to be able to, I don't know. I need to have an offline conversation with Melissa Molinex to have a better understanding. But I definitely feel there needs to be a connection between them.
Well, there's always been.
Because Mr. Chairman, you said that there are two different things. It's really not two different things because MARTA board is voting on initiatives and directives for the entire MARTA organization, which would include those projects that they're talking about in the advisory board, unless it's just a advisory board to take complaints.
I was speaking on the perspective of advisory, the MARTA board. Yes, votes. They submit votes, and this advisory group just does just that, advise. So yes, there's a place for everybody to work collaboratively together. I don't see that being an issue with the structure that's proposed.
Awesome, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you. All right, let's move on. Next presentation is Mr. Ijiki. He's going to talk about new community development department initiatives.
Chairman, Vice Chair, Commissioners, good evening. I'm here this evening to talk about some of the initiatives we have in the department, just an update to kind of keep you abreast of what is happening. That is measures we are taking to correct certain things in the code that might not be there already or there that needs to be shored up. So one of the first ones that I'm going to tackle is as a result of things we are hearing, and also we have a neighboring city or a city close to us. Most cities in the metro are beginning to pay attention to what builders and developers are doing with when their sales are lagging. They go to the very next best thing to sell it off as rental homes. So the real question is, why consider a no rent clause in a residential construction? A bunch of reasons, but the most important one is that, or some of the important ones is that the builder or developer wants to dump this building so that it can not stay there for a long time before sale. But when they do that, it destabilizes our community. So if we have this clause, it will foster stability. That means it's common knowledge that we have a lot of transient tenants in the county, and that is not good for stability. So by stabilizing neighborhoods and cutting down on the transient homeowners, it strengthens the things we want to build. In order to accomplish some of these things and figure out the best way in the code to do them, a moratorium will be needed to be able to accomplish this. We have an application on deck right now that talks about a rental community. So what we're trying to do is use the moratorium. I do not think, there are discussions internally. I do not think we're going to take the whole 180 days that it's saying, because we're about to get into our summer months of building. So we want to make sure that although we have a high inventory of lots in excess of 1,000 that will come online soon, but nonetheless, we don't want to give the impression to the development community that we are stopping residential development in Clayton County. So I know we have 180 days in it, bearing no issues. We plan on turning that around. It's a question of identifying what code sections. I kind of know where they're going. We just got to make sure that legal is in the same bus with us as to where I'm suggesting that it go so that it has teeth. The problem is putting it in a place where you will have checkpoints along the process. So when they get in, before they get out in the final plat, we institute where it becomes a requirement for the final plat notes. So we haven't discussed those details with legal, but I kind of know where they're supposed to go to make sure that one thing is having an ordinance and another thing is making it implementation of it being effective. So that is why we are asking for the moratorium so that we can have a no rent clause in our land development ordinance. The next topic is transitional and prison reentry housing. We've been getting inquiries here and there, folks talking to us, but I'll go into detail on that on the next slide. But for now, I'll skip that and come back to it. The next one is residential exterior architectural standards. There is a lot of things that is happening, and sometimes in the business we are in, we process high volume of things that sometimes when it gets built, sometimes it's not quite what we think it is. We're saying, okay, let's start the discussion before you even get to BOC to approve a subdivision. If we can start things very early and say, okay, this is the playbook as to how we want what you're going to build in Clayton County to look. We are not trying to regulate design because that's not a good thing to do. You want them to look different. But we are interested in exterior finished materials. We are interested in some of other elements that we're going to make sure that when folks buy a home, it's efficient. They don't spend half of their income in trying to heat or cool it down, and some other things that we're going to add in there. But more importantly, that when homes are built, after 5 years, they don't look like they've been there for 20. That's part of stuff that we are looking to do with that. So that consistency in code requirements for the exterior material in the county will run in tandem with what we have in the code already called plan book. But in the plan book requirement, the control is in the hands of the builder. They give us some, and by the time we go back and forth, we say yes. But now we are detecting, and the commissioners is helping us to detect what needs to be built. Not how, but what. Because when we go into how, you are regulating design. Like I said earlier, not a good way to go. Next topic is expansion of home occupation business types. Even before the COVID pandemic, the economy has changed quite a bit over years, over the past 10 years. There are folks are working on their own, young folks that have bright ideas to do business. Either they're not getting jobs or they are set out really to be entrepreneurs themselves. But they need the 1099 when they get contracts. They want to register with us as businesses and the Secretary of State. But our business license code and zoning is kind of limiting, because what we use for safe to have guardrails in what we do, I say to staff, if the code doesn't prescribe it, please don't do it, because if you do, that becomes arbitrary. But if you follow the code, although we know it's limiting, if we need to fix it, then we need to fix it. So what we are asking is that, kind of informing the board, we are now compiling uses. We cannot know where the potholes are in doing those. What people are asking us that is a no, that we can't do that because we don't want to destroy the neighborhoods. So we are building those lists, and when we're ready and talk to legal some more, we will come back. As you know, anything zoning, we still got to run it through legal. The chief staff attorney should tell me no, that that he can defend that. so the idea becomes that we're going to go there and do that. It's what is needed to be done, so that we start improving the aesthetics of the county, and also start paying attention to some of the conditions we are putting on our zoning approvals. Because some of the conditions, implementation-wise, in the land development side, you can't really achieve it, because I'm beginning to pay attention on some of them to say, hey, this is, you're not going to be able to achieve this. Let's agree on something better, something that I know you can actually, the developer can actually deliver to the communities. So those are the kind of changes we're going to put in place. So the businesses, there's a lot of things happening in there that we want to be able to allow folks to be able to have a good way of making a living and still maintain neighborhood stability and aesthetics. One other topic is cannabis oil and growing facility. We've had a lot of inquiries over, we have a lot of, thank you. We have a lot of inquiries regarding cannabis oil and growing facilities. So we want to be able to work on a draft, bring it back to the board, but we want to be able to say to the board, is it something we should be doing? Because it will take a lot of research and looking at different places and figuring out where it's going to go. We know that AG is a good place to put it, or rezone something to AG, but it is an initiative, given the nature of that business, that we kind of have an idea. It's a thing that we need to pursue and figure out how to do it, so that we not just doing it to have something, but we want to be able to pursue that. As you all might know, the state of Georgia have granted licenses for this to happen. So that's why folks are approaching Clayton County. Like I said earlier, I wanted to come back to, transitional and prison reentry housing. I wanted to come back to it because of the word housing is in it. We have to be, as staff, we have to be really careful about violating any parts of the Fair Housing Act. So In our research, this also can be called halfway houses, prison renting program, alcohol and substance abuse treatment programs. It has a lot of names, even community living. This type of housing, it's not prescribed in our code. We don't have it. So what we've been saying is that the code doesn't reference it. It's not in our code, we can do it. But that answer is not completely a legal response or a good answer, because at some point, somebody's going to push our group home, our boarding home, to do that. So we brought to the board in the last work session, the group home, the boarding home, and assisted living. What you're going to see when you get your package as it goes through the process is the cleanup of the definitions, just to make sure that someone doesn't construe that and figure out a way to finagle their way into saying it could pass for a transitional or prison rent and housing. The key to this, you will see what we are doing with definitions. The key to this whole type of housing is the tenants of such housing. If you look at who we currently have in the group homes and the boarding homes, and where the folks who are going to occupy this kind of housing are coming from, they are coming from the courts. There are people who are being released from prisons on probation and alcohol and substance abuse. That and the folks who are in group homes and boarding homes are not the same clientele. That's where we're trying to be careful what we are doing so that we define it properly. So we are working on clearly creating a distinction between such housing and the ones we have in the books already, which are group homes, boarding homes, and personal care homes. Our working analysis suggests allowing this type of housing within the office institutional zoning. That's why it's still draft analysis with a conditional use permit. It's not for sure. We haven't finalized where it will go, but for now, based on what we are seeing, it looks like a place it could go. In our research, we came up with different definitions, but these two kind of stood out to us. I'm only going to deal with the underlined text. The reason being that the underlying text is the crux of it, really. It's a prison rentry. It's for prison rentry. It's for persons being treated or recovering from addiction. That's what one definition called it. That's interesting. They call it. You will think it's a treatment center, but this is what they're calling it. Another definition talks about previously jailed or criminally convicted persons recovering from addiction also. So you can see that if you look at substance rehab places and this halfway housing, in some definitions, they are crossing paths. This is the reason why we are working to clarify our definition in Clayton County as to what that would be. So that's what I have this evening to update the board on the things we are working on. We still have some more to bring. So as we get going on this initial ones, the last time we brought the group homes thing, we'll keep cleaning up what we do and putting guardrails on them so that we can do a better job of implementing and not just saying no to folks on certain things. But that's where we are. And that is my presentation.
All right, thank you for that update in your presentation. Are there any questions for Mr. Ejike?
I have a question, this is Hambrick, I have a
Commissioner
question
Hambrick.
and a comment or a recommendation. Let's see, the question is regarding bed and breakfast in residential areas. Are you all covering that?
No, bed and breakfast, it's a business it's one of those things we can approve in home occupation because the folks who own it live there. But it's something that we can regulate, look into and see, because we need to make sure the difference between when we did I'm drawing blank.
Was it similar to what we were working on up in one of my neighborhoods about a year and a half ago?
Yes, that's.
But they weren't called bread and breakfast, it was called something else.
Yeah, they called it something else, and yeah, they called it something. That's why I'm drawing blank. So
Right,
yeah,
I can't think of it either. But
yeah, that's why I'm drawing blank. So the idea is, short-term rentals and vacation rental. So there's a different.
It's another word
Yeah.
for it too.
Yeah, but
And
this
I'm
one, there's another
asking
word.
Because I just got word, last couple of days, about a week ago, from one of the residents on another street in my area where this guy he purchased the house and he's renovating it, putting, things in it so he can, rent out for weekends or whatever, and I cannot remember what it's called, but anyway, it's very similar to a bread and breakfast and all, and she was mentioning it to me. I said, I'm just gonna let him go on and do it, and remember how we did before, how we nipped one or two of those in the bud about a year and a half ago, because they did not come in,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
won't say it out,
Yeah.
but I don't want anybody to
No,
say
yes. So we use the code to solve that.
Airbnb.
Airbnb. So we use the code
Yes.
to solve that, but we're not going to tell them how we did that.
Right. But Airbnb, thanks Chief Roberts for that, but it's
So-
Airbnb. Oh, and so we are working on that, right? Because I want to let them continue to do whatever so we can go in and nip that.
Yeah, Airbnb usually spikes up when summer comes around, but I think because of COVID, we might not be hard pressed this year for it. But we have things in ordinance to address those things and ways that if it pops up and how we can go after the fact and deny it or nullify it.
Okay, the other thing I was gonna mention, to you all, and hopefully somebody will think about it, I don't know if this is a zoning issue or not, but for the last couple of weeks, I've had to look for addresses up and down Highway 85 and especially on Riverdale Road. And I said, I can't even imagine what kind of problems the police and the fire department have, because these addresses are not visible. Is it something we can put on the books with that, where addresses are more visible, so if nothing else for emergency crews can find them?
Yes, we can. There are two things working. We can figure out a way to say to everybody, you must make your addresses on, if it's a developed property, you must have your addresses visible to on street level. I'm not sure if some of the commissioners know some neighborhoods where they can paint addresses on the curb. Those for emergency trucks. We can do that, but in the county, years ago, the county parcel map was a manual system. That's why sometimes you see zero address. What we are doing is any subdivision that we are working on, we go ahead and address it. That's the way we're addressing it, where we giving address to every place. But in terms of the EMS, police, and all the emergency areas, they use digital address. That's why when we do an address change, like the one that we recently did, we send it to the postmaster and send it to all the emergency services in the county, because they plug it into their system, and that's how they actually find things at night. Because it has it actually has a GPS coordinate to that address, so that's how they will find it at night. But
Or to put them close to the place, I guess, and then you have to turn around. I was just thinking,
Yeah.
in emergencies, seconds, could be a matter of life and death.
we can
And I guess if it's a fire, they'll see the flames, maybe, but,
Yeah. The one that has to do with existing buildings, I'll look into that. The other one, we actually trying to catch up on it. As zoning cases are coming to us, we are making sure we give them an address before they're processed.
Okay, if Mr. GK, did you say you were finished with your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I saw something on there about building, construction going on for rental properties, and you mentioned it in your presentation.
What I was referring to is when builders build subdivisions, and as you guys know, the process of land development, the developers most times is not the builder. The developers, the true developers, just develop land and put all the underground utilities in, build the road, and they sell the lots and leave. And the builders come and buy those lots. So what the builders are doing, and sometimes the developer is also the builder, and there are not too many of them who do that. What the builders are doing when they sell, and if the houses are not selling as fast as they want to sell, and someone approaches them to sell in bulk, they will sell in bulk for rental purposes, or they start renting it out themselves. Part of the hastiness in looking at this and doing this, I've had several conversations with Chief County Attorney and some other folks we know outside of the county. There is actually a proposal on the books today for a development that contemplates renting. So that's going to be where the first fight is going to be for me, and figuring out how we're going to body it in the books, because I want to get all the list of what we have that is in the pipeline. So all I'm saying is we want to put a clause in the county for folks not to be renting homes when they're coming online as new homes.
Right.
I don't think you can stop anybody who owns a home already not to rent their home. I don't think so. Yeah, so we can't do that, but what we can control is if you're going to build a new home in Clayton County, you cannot start off renting it, because it destabilizes what we're doing. Folks have a little bit of interest when they spend money building this house, doing the things that it takes to own a home. But if they're renting, they're transient in nature, they don't really care. So those are the kind of things that this will hopefully kind of mitigate.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Chair,
Commissioner
Mr. GK,
Yes, ma'am.
as you're working on these new zoning ordinances, I'd like to see some tweaking of the landscaping when it comes to residential. Let's say for instance, like if you're riding down Forest Parkway, and there are subdivisions on Forest Parkway. Of course, Forest Parkway is like an industrial street. But if you had the nice, pretty trees, cover them to seclude them into a community, it would make it so much better. With a builder actually built in that kind of area. But now, if you ride down Forest Parkway, you see some subdivisions, and they're just backed up. You can see in their back door, or you can see their back patio. But again, having some fencing and those trees that grow real quick and full, it makes a difference. And you know, you kind of just got your home secluded in there. And I would like to ask if you know, just tweak that landscaping again. I'd also like to see some tweaking on, now that the mailboxes, you know, nobody has, the new subdivisions don't have the mailbox in front of their house. Perhaps the areas where the cluster mailboxes are gonna be. You know, it just can't look like it's just some old rundown apartment complex, but have something with some style or something.
Point well taken, Commissioner.
Any other comments? Mr. Ejiki, was that last part the moratorium that you spoke on?
The moratorium, it's coming next Tuesday. The text for it has been drafted. I know that we are cognizant of the fact that we don't want it to last that long, that we want to fix it before the warm weather starts, really. But the 180, it's just there to be there, but we want to fix it quickly so that we don't stop any new development in the county that could be coming our way.
Okay.
Mr. Ejiki, thank you for that, Mr. Chairman first, I apologize.
Go ahead, Commissioner Franklin. Go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Ejiki, thank you for that presentation. I'm glad to see that we're getting ahead of the curve as much as possible, especially since we know this has been a trend in the area of these large investment firms purchasing property. So I know we've got a long way to go because of constitutional laws that I know that Chuck Reed will make sure that we're not in violation of. So it's just a little tricky thing that we do need to work through. However, when it comes to the moratorium, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think that our intentions are very good, but again, I think back to when one of our employees was retiring, and he was talking about an instance where we were dealing with the computer system, the HO's system, so forth. And he said they finally got to where they needed to be. So, but the one thing that stuck in my mind is he said, you know what, we finally got there, but it cost the taxpayers money because we took so long to get there. Now, I know that Commissioner Hambrick says I can't say that I'm new anymore, but at the end of the day, my experience comes from corporate. And at the end of the day, it's corporate that drives our tax base so that we can make sure that we are collecting taxes so that we can be able to provide our community with the services we need. So even though you're saying that we hope the moratorium is not going to last long, I am really, really concerned about instituting any moratorium when work should and could be done, and then we come back and vote on it. It should not take a long time. So I am really pleased with your presentation once again, but maybe it's just my experience and not being in government or corporate. It shouldn't. I don't know how that moratorium is going to be perceived because Clayton County right now is moving. We are definitely leading the market and folks coming to our community, and we need to be very careful of sending out messaging about now we're going to put a moratorium in place because regardless, it's going to slow down our ability to be able to, again, collect those taxes so we can provide the service, level of service to our community. But thank you.
Mr. Reed.
Thank you.
One thing, Board, the reason why we're putting this on as a moratorium and also giving you a heads up as to the reason why is because if we do not at least basically put a bandage on the area where it needs to be fixed, then we'll be continuing to bleed as well as trying to get things done at the same time. So that's what this is. This is just a quick bandage to help us get our ordinance in place. Then we'll move forward, making sure that things are protected. We put 180 days, we can put shorter than that, but ultimately the goal is for us to move quickly, understanding that this is a significant move, but one that's necessary because we don't want people to come in and build multifamily, single-family rental opportunities, basically creating a 300 a 300-unit multifamily home with single-family homes. So that's what we have right now. But we just need to take a pause, allow us to fix it. It's something that's authorized by law. The case law, as well as the General Assembly, have given counties the ability to put a moratorium, temporary moratorium in place to correct these type of things. And it is certainly, we're going to do as fast as we can to kind of go through the process, advertising, putting something before you all that you all are agreeable with, and then reopen things back for business. But I just wanted to kind of address that issue.
Thank you so much. Just for a point of clarity, I want you to know, I'm not an advocate. I'm an advocate for getting it done, and I am an advocate for getting it done right. But since I've been on this board, we have spent a lot of money in zoning edits and all of that. We spent a lot of money and a lot of time. In fact, I think we still have a contract right now with the collaborative firm that is always there willing and ready to and able to help get it done. So where we're trying to do it quickly, I want to make sure that that does not take precedence over doing it thoroughly and make sure that we get it right. I think we need to pace ourselves. We need to have some mechanism of accountability, not that we just let it go 180 days or 60 days without any follow-up. That tends to happen, unfortunately, but right now, it's very critical for us, again, because we are in unprecedented times. We're having to really, really watch how we spend, how we're taking in our taxes. We've got folks in place, we're already paying. I think we can kind of multitask a little bit and get some of this stuff done. And again, if other folks can do it, we can do it, and other governments can do it, we can do it. So thank you for that clarity, but we definitely want to get it right, and I do support these efforts.
And I appreciate your comments there, Commissioner, but I also want to add that rest assured that the staff definitely moves. They might try to move expeditiously, but they always got that on the forefront of their minds to get it right, because we don't need to, nor can we afford to keep going back and forth. So I appreciate your comments in that spirit.
Okay, and Mr. Chairman, so can we count on you to have some accountability measures and communication with
We always have accountability
through
measures.
this process, because that's very key.
We always have accountability measures, ma'am.
And communication, thank you. And how long is that gonna be, sir? We'll get an update in 30 days?
We'll get you an update as soon as we can, Commissioner.
30 days, thank you, I appreciate it.
Any other comments? That ends our agenda for this evening. I appreciate everybody coming, and God bless. Have a good night.
No, sir, hold on, Mr. Chairman. I requested, because we have that little space for if there's any additional information needed. I've already sent information over to Mr. COO, as well as to our building director. I would like for him to share that update briefly, because as Commissioner, I'm receiving a lot of phone calls about a facility that was supposed to be completed back in October, and then again in December, and now we're going into February. And we had a meeting today, and the county was on, and there was no definitive information provided. I'm sure Mr. COO has a lot to do, but if he could go ahead and provide that update on record, that would be absolutely phenomenal.
Ma'am, we received your request this afternoon per our code. That request should have came in on Thursday afternoon. So therefore, I have asked staff to have a formal presentation, which allows them to have more information for you at our next work session. Well, I'm not gonna say if that's acceptable to you. If you would like it to be on the next work session, then that's exactly where to be. But at this point, the agenda closed out last Thursday, and we will end this meeting with that last presentation.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're most welcome.
I appreciate it. I look forward to the presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Y'all have a good night.